And welcome back to the show. Equality for Flatbush is an organization that is actually geared towards dealing with some very specific issues, things like a police accountability, affordable housing, and anti-gentrification and anti-displacement in Flatbush, as well as East Flatbush and Brooklyn wide. Now, the organization has I should say, two goals. One is to end NYPD murders, and two, to stop the displacement of low to middle income people from Brooklyn, New York. And joining us now and sharing more details, we are pleased to have the lead organizer of Equality for Flatbush, Imani Keith Henry, and we're glad to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And when we look around, we talk about Flatbush, and you talk about Flatbush, East Flatbush, the whole area there. Give us your take on what you're seeing in the area and what you really want to focus in on.
So Equality for Flatbush is a Black Lives Matter group. We were founded in 2013, so right at the height of the beginning of the Black Lives Matter movement. And what we were dealing with and seeing Brooklyn-wide was one, more tenant harassment happening, and then and of course, more stop and frisk. And again, in our just little area, Flatbush, East Flatbush, Crown Heights, we experienced like six either police murders or or people being shot by the police and surviving, like between 2012 and 2018 for just our little area. So the way it breaks down for us is that our anti-displacement work is Brooklyn-wide, and it always has been, because our people are moving everywhere, and we support homeowners and tenants in Bed-Stuy. Right now we have a bunch of buildings in Bensonhurst. So the main things around Equality for Flatbush is that our anti-displacement, our anti-gentrification work is a Brooklyn-wide endeavor. And it's, from anything, right now we have 5 buildings in Bensonhurst, a lot of migrants of color that are going through like no heat right now and haven't had steady heat for 10 years in their building, and going after that landlord who happens to be one of the worst evictors. And this is how landlords evict tenants too, is making the conditions so bad that people want to get up and leave, and denying things like heat and hot water. We have a homeowner in Bed-Stuy that's been fighting a developer since 2016. We have a homeowner fighting Immigrant Bank in Flatbush. And then our police accountability works. Again, we're the Cop Watch team in the community, in the neighborhood. We rapidly respond when people are killed. We went and started a search for like community stories to dispel this whole myth of suicide by cop for Idris Pierre that was just killed in Crown Heights. That's the kind of work that we do. We also have rapidly respond around people that are in emotional distress. I happen to be a social worker. We've worked with other social workers that we're an alternative to 911. So we've gone and helped people go to the hospital or help counsel a family of what to do. And that, or do safety plans for folks in domestic violence situation, all of that kind of stuff, so that people feel more self-reliant, and not afraid that if I call 911, I could be shot and killed, or my loved one could be shot and killed.
So let me ask you this: when we talk about Flatbush, we talk about Brooklyn, we know that the new mayor-elect Eric Adams, I should say, actually sworn in now, comes from the area. When we talk about the issue of police accountability, knowing that he has a police background, how optimistic are you that you'll be able to see some reform with regards to accountability with the New York City Police Department?
So Eric Adams has unfortunately been a target of ours since 2015, formally. We protested at a real estate summit that he was one of the keynote speakers at the Brooklyn Museum, under our coalition that we created with other groups in Brooklyn called the Brooklyn Anti-Gentrification Network, BAN. And so what we have always come to understand about Eric Adams is, one, that he is pro-development, takes lots of money from real estate industry. So did de Blasio. I mean, this is, so many other politicians do this too. That he has been key. I mean, he gives tours to like real estate developers and all of that kind of stuff. Like he has been, you know, he's been culpable in the situation around displacement in Brooklyn. That is just a fact. That is just true. And a lot of the folks that come to us have already like tapped into their council person or the borough president and all of them, and they come really because we're like a last ditch effort as a direct action group to try to win justice. I think the other piece around policing is that again, 2020, he didn't side with us as protesters of the uprisings that were going on in Brooklyn. People were being beaten in the Bronx. People were being beaten in Brooklyn. He would get on and, kind of like, say, I'm for these kind of protesters, but not these kind of protesters, when people are on the sidewalk getting beat up by the cops. So we haven't had this experience, like we don't have lived experience, just with direct honesty, of him being for social justice for Black people in Brooklyn or people of color in Brooklyn or Brooklynites in general. We just don't have that experience.
Has he given you any response as regards to any of the issues that you've raised? What has been his direct response to you?
I um, I would say that when I have engaged with Eric Adams, it has not necessarily been a communicative conversation. It's really like similar to what happened. I mean, like we posted that his reaction to the new city council folks coming in, or the city council in general coming out against solitary confinement, and the way that he's talk about people is exactly that thing, that way for a lot of us. If you're more progressive than him, his whole thing is like, why won't you talk to me alone? Don't put things out on social media. Don't, how dare you? That's like been his piece. I'm actually like in a whole Facebook discussion right now about what he said about low wage workers, that the people are like not skilled. And how can you say that when people are desperately, finding work wherever they can? We, for 22 months, we worked on a mutual aid project where we did rental assistance, groceries every month, for hundreds of people Brooklyn wide. Why would you ever say that? We fed nurses, we fed bar owners, restaurant owners, tenants, homeowners. Like it was just our people that needed groceries, needed financial aid, needed like other forms of mutual aid. We had like people gathering air conditioners for elders. So to even while we're in this incredible economic crisis, to talk about anybody that's working, thank goodness. So many people have been laid off. Why would you go and have this ridiculous understanding, especially for migrants of color, that somehow we're unskilled when sometimes we're just getting whatever is available to us because maybe we don't have the credentials, maybe we're not documented, whatever. So again, a whole debate is going on right now of like, do you not know who we are in Brooklyn? Do you not know who are New Yorkers? Why would you ever say that? When the minimum wage is not even, it's as of this month, it's $13 an hour in New York City. Who can feed a family on that? Who can take care of themselves on that? It was just utterly disrespectful.
Right. So now you got plenty of people who have this wage and they are living in affordable housing. I know affordable housing is something that you talked about that the organization would like to see carried out and done better. We're talking about a whole lot of development that's going on across New York City and the need for more affordable housing. But there's also critics on the other side who say, listen, affordable housing is definitely necessary. But if you're ever going to improve the economic impact, if you're ever going to improve the quality of life across the city, we're going to have to do some more development. And they point to places like Brooklyn, they point to Harlem, and even the Bronx and the South Bronx as perfect instances of how they can improve that. But we also know these are areas that have been highly occupied by people of color.
So we make a very clear distinction that gentrification is not happenstance. It is a concerted effort. It is the real estate industry. It is the local and federal government. It is an understanding. It is a global phenomenon that we talk about, that it's racist because the impact on communities of color are completely different than other neighborhoods. And that is very true, that Park Slope isn't getting developed all over the place in the same way that, say, Flatbush is. They're not being renamed and rebranded at Prospect Lefferts Garden or Ditmas Park like Flatbush is. We can talk about all we're just popping up, seeing all these weird names in our neighborhood as a rebranding to usher in more gentrification. The truth of the matter, what we say is we want 100% affordable housing. There is no need to build luxury housing to then, say that we get a few slots, and it's still unaffordable. We've documented in our neighborhood about, you need to have great credit and are able to spend $1,700 on a studio in one of these new buildings. We're just really? You need to be able to spend close to $2,000 on a studio apartment in Flatbush? It's just ridiculous. So what we really talk about is that, New York is being destroyed culturally, socially, economically, linguistically, because of gentrification. They are totally making it more like a homogeneous, if you're not rich, if you're not, incredibly middle class, and you're not white, which again, I'm proud that Hasidic Jewish folks, Black Caribbean folks, Latinx folks, it's Asian folks, are part of this anti-gentrification movement in New York City. It's wonderful. People are talking about affordable housing in a real way, that isn't based on luxury, majority luxury, which also remain empty. There's so much talk about how many of these luxury high-rise that no one can afford are empty in the first place. So why build them? Why build them?
So let me go here and say, I heard you say it would be great to have New York City 100% affordable. How do you get to the place of being able to have affordable housing 100% across the city?
Well, we already have that. I mean, most of us wouldn't be here. I mean, the whole piece of rent stabilization, and we want to just talk about the fact that in other places like Boston or Atlanta, it's not affordable anymore, but people bought homes, right? And New York City, because of our density, population density, not everyone can afford a home, and not everyone, there's just, it's too big of population. So here we are, we're already in rent stabilized buildings, and those laws around rent stabilization is about that you're guaranteed a lease. That's permanent. You can pass it down and have succession rights. We're dealing with landlords that are doing everything they can to throw elders out of the building, and denying people the basic rights that they have. We already have all this rent stabilized housing that the laws state. I mean, I want to just be clear. They changed the succession rights laws that used to have a whole gamut, your uncle, your siblings, all of this sort of larger picture of what migrant families, particularly of color, look like, to say it's only now this nuclear family, when so many of us were sponsored by an aunt or an uncle to come from another country. It's just ridiculous. So we've been fighting and actually winning these cases because they are meant to, I mean, I'll just be honest with you, that for white folks or non-Black folks can move into a rent stabilized building, get themselves all on the same lease. They might not even know they're rent stabilized. Meanwhile, people born and raised in the same building can't even get their child on the lease. That's what the racial discrimination that's going on, and that's what's pushing out people. And why I even mentioned Crown Heights, my goodness, to have there are working class Hasidic folks that have been at our demonstrations and thanked us for our work, because when we go in a building, it's still working class people. working and middle class people in Crown
Yeah.
Heights.
And Imani, I want to jump in and tell you, or at least ask you to share a little bit more, because when you talk about the work that you're doing, we talk about the issues, and these are some of the issues that is going on for equality for Flatbush. But there are resources that you provide that are available to the community to be able to assist them where they have these issues. So please share with our viewers a little bit about some of the resources that are available for people who may be going through right in that area.
We don't we do provide resources. We actually do. What we do is organizing. We're a direct action group. So we've saved 5 small Black businesses in Brooklyn based on direct action. And direct action can be a petition. Direct action can be protests and rallies. You know, like just getting the community by the might of the people. We've saved businesses. The same with like tenants. We're not just simply saying like, oh, these people don't have heat and hot water. We tell everybody to call and report. We talk about the stories, and like we are organizing with those tenants. So what we say to people, the best thing that folks can do is turn to their neighbors. If they feel the system has failed them, if they've already gone to every single politician and they can't get help, it's our neighbors. And we can just talk about like, oh my goodness, like whether it be a lawsuit or like, really frankly, like an emergency, eviction defense. For 5 days in 2020, we held a building where tenants were being illegally evicted during the pandemic for 5 days, 24 hours a day. We're still working with them. They now have a lawyer. They're in court against their landlord. Like that's the kind of work that we do, because we believe that we as people have power, and that from the 8-hour day to the rent stabilization to even the fact that Black people have homes was all done by community organizing, that we took care of each other. We have each other's back. We believe in revolutionary love and kindness, and that we rely on each other. And so we fight together and we win together.
Yeah. And so, as you're working on some of your current campaigns right now, we know that housing is of importance, also police accountability. Where are you in terms of police community relations right there in the Flatbush area? How receptive is the NYPD when you have your concerns?
So in 2018, we street vendors in our neighborhood were being thrown off the block, even if they had permits. That we already know, like, the whole vendor movement in New York is like fighting for licensings, and like really getting to see that folks are like without their business owners, without brick and mortar. That's just the reality. And even statistically right now, since the pandemic, more people in New York are vending. More people are using that as a resource because that is like, because they can find work other ways. So our street vendor organizing, our lead folks were, particularly Spanish speaking vendors, and we did everything. We met with the city, we met with the NYPD. I mean, people like a Haitian elder is selling peanuts in little plastic baggies, and she's getting $100 tickets every single day. Every single day. So we did all the right things. I mean, we met with them, but we also did, a film. We also did petitioning in the neighborhood. Like as people worked, we had people say, do you know the icy that you're getting right now? This person got $1,000 ticket over this icy. And the whole people were like, oh, how dare you? Children were just like, we've saved a site on the Underground Railroad in downtown Brooklyn. And regardless of how much police presence might be at a demonstration, or how much, this was a 16-year struggle. We just got involved in 2019. We were able to win. We were able to win. Vendors are not being harassed in the corner of Flatbush and Church Avenue anymore. Like that's how we believe. We believe in, like, you can go through all the steps you want to, but you still need a grassroots campaign. Every single time that we have homeowners in court, we're still doing grassroots campaign. The landlords in court with tenants, we're still doing a grassroots campaign. That could even be like, it's very common that we're like in court when we could go to court, that we have court days and there are 4 different buildings or set of tenants that are in court on the same day. We go from courtroom to courtroom. People have each other's back. It's beautiful to see. We have our t-shirts on, Brooklyn's not for sale, and we go from courtroom to courtroom to take care of each other. It's just wonderful. And the same thing with the small Black businesses. Our tenants down the block come to surround Errol's Bakery. I mean, it's beautiful and it's wonderful. And that's kind of our thing. We're not reliant. Again, the 911, I've stood, I'm a social worker, I've stood, you know, and told cops, please put away the shield, please put away the spit bag. This is an 8-year-old. This is an 8-year-old that you're coming for. I've argued with the police about, I have 2 master's degrees. I've been in the social work field for over 20 years, and cops think they know more than I do about how to deal with someone that's in an emotional distress, even though that household called us first and said, come here, because they didn't want that young person to be shot and killed by the cops.
Right.
So I just want to just say, like, our route is that, yes, we do those processes too, but we really focus on direct action and what the community can do, because that's how we've really won. That's what the experience we have.
Right. So how do neighbors have the opportunity to check in or to be a part of, like you say, going from courtroom to courtroom to courtroom? If I'm in the middle of a court case and I know that I've got to go to housing court, how do I get in touch with you to know that I can get this advocacy on my behalf?
Well, again, I want to be clear. We're not a nonprofit and we don't do advocacy work. We do organizing. And I want to just say this because the people leading the struggle is like, I'm not a street vendor. So the people leading the struggle, the people meeting with the city, the people doing the most talking are the vendors, street vendors themselves. So you can call us at 646-820-6039. You can go to our website. I think the piece of it is that, we want people to really feel that they have power. That's the whole point of gentrification and police violence, that we got someone off Rikers for 3 years because they survived a police shooting, 17 hours, Devontae Prensley, 17 hours of surgery. And they pinned the same thing, suicide by cop, all of the stuff. And the community, we took 3 years to do it. Charges dropped off Rikers Island because community came together.
Yeah. Well, Imani, thank you for the great work that you guys continue to do. I think that, I use the word advocacy, but really raising your voice and being present and prevalent in the community is what's needed in order to bring some stabilization and then some awareness. And so thank you for sharing about the work that's going on with your organization, Equality for Flatbush, and glad to have you with us.
And thank you for having a social justice forum. That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
we love activist media. So thank you for having me.
Hey, glad to have you. And I want to let our viewers know, listen, we want you to stay with us. We got another special guest here on the Social Justice Forums. Don't go anywhere. We're coming back right after this.